At the conclusion of this lecture, you will have a general understanding of what is meant by common law and understand the significance of precedents. Common law is generally uncodified. This means that there is no comprehensive compilation of legal rules and statutes. The English legal system is based on common law, so the decisions of the higher court become part of the law. This means that it has been created by the judiciary through the decisions in the cases they have heard. Thus, it is also referred to as case law. Common law is always evolving, given the nature of the variety of cases that are presented to the judiciary. Common law functions as an adversarial system, a contest between two opposing parties before a judge who moderates. A jury of ordinary people without legal training decide on the facts of the case in certain matters, for example, murder. The judge then determines the appropriate sentence based on the jury's verdict. Common law is largely based on precedent, meaning that the judicial decisions that have already been made in similar cases are binding on subsequent cases with similar facts. These precedents are maintained over time through the records of the courts, as well as being historically documented in collections of case law known as yearbooks and reports. The precedents to be applied in the decision of each new case are determined by the presiding judge. As a result, judges have an enormous role in shaping a common law legal system. Case law operates within the pyramid structure of the court system, with the decisions of the higher courts binding those courts lower than them. Courts at the same level are bound to the same precedents. The exception to this general rule can be seen in the actions of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court of England came into existence in 2009 and dissolved the House of Lords. It can now overrule its own previous rules, but the Court of Appeal cannot. Judges, however, do have the ability to avoid precedents they do not wish to follow through the procedure of distinguishing the cases on their facts and, of course, they have a very large number of cases and precedents to choose from. There are two parts to every precedent, the ratio decidendi and the obiter dicta. The ratio decidendi is a Latin phrase meaning the reason for the decision. Ratio decidendi refers to the legal, moral, political, and social principles on which a court's decision rests. It is the rationale for reaching the decision of a case. The ratio decidendi is the legal rule of a particular judiciary decision. It is binding on lower courts through the principle of stare decisis, the Latin phrase meaning to stand by things decided. Everything that is not the ratio decidendi of a case is termed obiter dictum. The obiter dictum relates to everything that the judge considered in terms of the facts of a particular case in reaching a particular decision, which on its own would not lead to the judge deciding the matter in a certain way. Therefore, it is merely of persuasive authority that does not have to be followed by any other courts. Remember, as the ratio decidendi of any case is based upon the material facts of a particular case, this opens up the possibility that a later court may regard the facts of the case before it as significantly different from the facts of a cited precedent, and thus it will not find itself bound to follow that precedent. Judges use this device of distinguishing cases on their facts where, for some reason, they are unwilling to follow a particular precedent. There are numerous perceived advantages of the doctrine of precedent, amongst which are consistency. This refers to the fact that like cases are decided on a like basis. Additionally, it proves that a particular decision was not apparently subject to the whim of the individual judge deciding the case in question. This aspect of formal justice is important in justifying the decisions taken in particular cases. Certainty is another advantage of using precedents. This follows on from consistency. Lawyers and their clients are able to predict what the likely outcome of a particular legal question is likely to be in the light of previous judicial decisions. Additionally, once the legal rule has been established in one case, individuals can orient their behavior with regard to what that rule provides for. Thus, it can increase compliance to certain legal principles. Efficiency refers to the fact that it saves the resources of the legal system and its clients for the reason that cases do not have to be re-argued. In respect of potential litigants, It saves them money in court expenses because they can apply to their solicitor or barrister for guidance as to how their particular case is likely to be decided in light of previous cases on the same or similar points. By doing this, judges are availing of the opportunity to develop law in particular areas without waiting for Parliament to enact legislation. There are a number of approaches used by judges in ensuring that statutory interpretation is correct and fair. The approaches used by the judiciary are the literal approach, the golden rule, the purposive approach, and the mischief rule. We will now examine each in turn. The traditional approach to statutory interpretation has been a literal approach, where the words are given their plain dictionary meaning. Under this rule, the judge is required to consider what the legislation actually says, rather than considering what it might mean. The literal approach tends to produce a very gradual, conservative, and restrictive attitude towards legal development. The idea being that judges should not make law, but simply implement what Parliament has decided. It is now commonly accepted that judges make law, and the purposive approach allows judges to interpret what they think Parliament was trying to achieve. It suggests that the interpretive role of the judge should include, where necessary, the power to look beyond the words of statute in search of reason, and that meaning should be construed in the light of the purpose of a particular act, so as to give it effect. This purposive approach is typical of civil law systems. In these jurisdictions, legislation tends to set out general principles and leaves the fine details to be filled in later by the judges, who are expected to make decisions in the furtherance of those general principles. The literal approach is the dominant approach used by the English courts, and this is reflected in the various technical rules of statutory interpretation to ascertain the meaning of a statute, and the rules to aid the interpretation of individual words. The mischief rule is used by the courts to determine the intention of the legislators. This principle aims at finding out the mischief and defect in a statute, and to implement a remedy for the same. The rule was established in Hayden's case. In conclusion, precedents are a key concept of common law systems. Precedents are separated into ratio decidendi and obiter dictum. Judges use the literal approach, golden rule, purposive approach, and